What is going on, guys? Welcome back into another video. Now, with the launch of LightFall, we had some massive changes within our armor mod system. They gave us a ton of flexibility to our builds within both PvE and PvP. It also introduced some unique ways to generate orbs of power, which allows us to regen our health, empower our weapons, and to spam our abilities when we need to. Now in this video, I'm going to show you a build that utilizes the Ophidian Aspect exotic gauntlets for the Warlock and combines them with some of the amazing fragments and aspects within Solar 3.0 that makes this one of the strongest builds in the game right now for PvP. We're also going to touch on some seasonal artifact perks, weapons, and armor mods that will allow you to take this build to a whole new level so you can absolutely dominate inside the Crucible for the remainder of Season 20. Now before we get into it, if you're enjoying the content on the channel, feel free to hit that thumbs up and sub to the channel. We are super close to our goal of 1,000 subs on the channel, and I really appreciate all of the amazing support. Now to start things off, the Ophidian Aspects are exotic gauntlets specifically for the Warlock, and they do have the armor perk on them called Cobra Totemic. Now this allows your weapons to ready and reload very quickly. Melee range is also extended, and it provides a small benefit to airborne effectiveness stat of all weapons as well. Now basically the way these work is that these are passively going to grant a +10 to your airborne effectiveness. It's also going to grant a +35 to handling and a +35 reload speed to all weapons. It's also going to increase your melee lunge distance from 4.5 meters to 6.5 meters. Now moving over to our subclass and our super of choice for this build, and that is going to be the Daybreak. Now this allows you to fashion solar light into blades and smite your foes from the sky. Your Daybreak projectiles launch a streak of deadly flames on impact. Now using this super is subjective. You can certainly go with Well of Radiance if you'd prefer to. Usually when I'm playing game modes that involve a capture zone like Trials of Osiris, Control, or even Iron Banner, I would go Well of Radiance over Daybreak, but it's up to you depending on the game mode you're playing. Now moving over to our class ability, and I'm going to be going with the Phoenix Dive. Now this allows you to dive to the ground and create a burst of solar light that cures nearby allies. While Heat Rises is active, you gain restoration while diving and scorch targets upon landing as well. Now to me, this is a must use inside the Crucible right now because it is going to apply Cure ×2 to you and allies within 9 meters of you using it. Also, if Heat Rises is active, it's going to apply Restoration ×2 for 3 seconds to yourself, and it inflicts 100 damage with 40 + 20 Scorch to enemies within 5 meters. Now, I'm also pairing that up with the Celestial Fire for our melee and the FireBolt Grenade, which gives us a ton of map control, and it also synergizes extremely well with some of these seasonal artifact perks that we'll talk about here shortly. Now, moving over to our aspects, the first one I'm going to be using is the Icarus Dash. Now, this allows us to dodge quickly while airborne. Also, while Heat Rises is active, you have an additional dodge. While airborne, rapidly defeating targets with your super or weapon grants cure to you as well. Now to me, this aspect is super subjective. You can certainly go with Heat Rises if you'd prefer to. I prefer Icarus Dash for the movement around the map, and it allows me to get out of sticky situations when I need to. And I'm pairing this one up with Touch of Flame, which is going to increase the target search and radius and maximum target count for our FireBolt grenades. Now this one is a huge one to use for this setup since we're relying on those FireBolt grenades. It's going to allow us to increase our seek radius by 50% up to 12 meters for enemies, and it's also going to allow us to target up to 5 enemies as well. Now moving over to our fragments, and the goal here is to apply as much scorch to targets as possible so we can create a ton of ignitions. And with that being said, the first fragment I'm going with is going to be Ember of Ashes. Now this allows you to apply more scorch stacks to targets. I'm also rolling with Ember of Eruption, which is your solar ignitions have increased area of effect. This also gives us a +10 to strength. Next up, I'm using Ember of Searing, which is defeating scorched targets grant melee energy and creates a fire sprite. This also gives us a +10 to recovery. Now to me, this was a big one to use here because it's going to allow us to get about 20% of our melee ability energy back when we do defeat scorched targets. Also, by grabbing that fire sprite, it allows us to get about 12.5% of our grenade energy back each time we grab one of those fire sprites, so we're basically getting our abilities back non-stop. And the last one I'm going to be rolling with is Ember of Char. Now this allows your solar ignitions to spread scorch to affected targets. This also gives us a +10 to discipline. Now moving over to the armor side of things for this setup and some of the stats that I would really focus on within your armor, I think the two main focus points are going to be discipline and recovery, with a minor focus on resilience and strength. Now obviously having higher discipline could lead us to get those FireBolt grenades back super quick. Also, having higher recovery will keep us alive in sticky situations. I mean, having higher resilience is always good because it's going to reduce our flinch in gun battles, and getting that melee energy back will allow us to scorch more targets, which then could lead to more ignitions on the battlefield. Now, in terms of mods for this setup, I'm starting off here on my helmet, and I'm throwing on a double kinetic targeting mod. Now, this is going to improve our target acquisition, accuracy, and ADS speed for our kinetic weapons. Now, to me, these mods are super subjective. I would encourage you to put on the targeting mods of the weapons that you use the most. Now, moving over to my gauntlets, the first mod I'm throwing on is going to be a grenade kickstart mod. Now, this is when your grenade energy is fully expended, you gain grenade energy. Additionally, your armor charge is consumed, and you gain additional grenade energy for each stack. And I'm pairing that up with a fastball mod, which is going to increase our grenade throw distance, and a melee kickstart mod, which is when your melee energy is fully expended, you gain melee energy. Additionally, your armor charge is consumed, and you gain additional melee energy for each stack as well. Now, moving over to my chest, and I'm throwing on a double unflinching kinetic aim mod, which is going to reduce the flinch from incoming fire while aiming a kinetic weapon. Now, again, to me, these mods are super subjective, so I would encourage you to throw on the unflinching mods of the weapons that fit your playstyle the best. Now, moving over to my legs, the first mod I'm throwing on is going to be an innervation mod, which is going to reduce our grenade cooldown each time we pick up an orb of power. Now, this is a nice one to use because it's going to allow us to get those firebolt grenades back super quick, since it gives us about 10% of our grenade energy back on an orb pickup. And I'm pairing that up with a recuperation mod, which is going to replenish our health each time we pick up an orb of power, and an invigoration mod, which is going to reduce melee cooldown each time we pick up an orb of power as well. Now, to round things out on the armor side of things, here on my bond, the first one I'm throwing on is a bomber mod, which is going to reduce our grenade cooldown when using our class ability. And I'm pairing that up with a double outreach mod, which is going to reduce our melee cooldown when using your class ability as well. Now, these mods are going to synergize extremely well together because every time we use that Phoenix Dive, it's going to allow us to get about 15% of our grenade energy as well as 15% of our class ability back. Now, moving over to our seasonal artifact perks, and there are only two of them that I'm really going to recommend with this build. The first one is going to be the Flare Up perk, and this is going to allow your firebolt grenades to apply more scorch stacks. Damaging a combatant with a firebolt grenade spawns a fire sprite near them as well. Now, obviously, this one synergizes with our setup extremely well because it allows us to create more ignitions on the battlefield and to spawn more fire sprites, which allows us to get those firebolt grenades back a ton during matches. And the second one I'm going to recommend is the perk Rain of Firebolts, which is when you have firebolt grenades equipped, you gain a second grenade charge. Now, I feel like this one is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, more grenades equals more scorch stacks, which leads to more ignitions, which allows you to make more booms inside of a Crucible map and take control of any situation that you're in. Now, in terms of weapons that I'd recommend with this setup, you have a ton of flexibility here, but if you really want to maximize the amount of scorch you can apply to targets, I would stick with solar weapons that have the perk on it, Incandescent. Now, this perk allows you to defeat a target to spread a longer lasting scorch to those nearby. More powerful combatants and opposing guardians cause scorch in a larger radius. I also think that exotic weapons like Skyburner's Oath, Sunshot, and Prometheus Lens could be a lot of fun to use with this setup, since all of those weapons have the ability to scorch targets as well. Now, to wrap things up, this is hands down one of my favorite PvP builds for Season 20. It gives you a ton of survivability, the ability to create a ton of ignitions if you can get enemies close together, and the ability to fully have map control in almost any situation you need to. Additionally, it has a ton of flexibility within the loadout that you need to use with this setup, so you can customize it to your own playstyle or to the game mode that you're actually playing. Now, as always, guys, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for this setup, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I really value your opinion, and I love to hear what you guys are using in game. Guys, thanks a ton for checking out this video. I really hope this helps you out for the remainder of Season of Defiance, and I will plan on seeing you all in the next video.